Hi, okay, sorry if there's any awkwardness at the start. I'm always waiting to make sure it's recording to begin with. So my name is Colleen. I teach Level 6 CDD, Creative Digital Design, at the City Road campus in Auckland. I'm in our studio at the moment. Behind me is all my teaching aids I use as packaging and everything. So I've got a really quick demo today. It's just a fun, slightly 70s retro, quite kitsch style 3D type exercise. Should only take, hopefully really quick, just 10 minutes absolute max. So I'm just going to go into screen share mode now. I'm going to be working in Illustrator for this, and just a couple of tricks that Illustrator now has going. So hopefully that is me in screen share mode. So this is the outcome we're after. I've put the words love, hate, it could really be anything you like, in the shape of a heart. So we're going to be breaking down how you make a heart shape, or the easy way I go about making a heart shape in Illustrator, how to get lettering to sit in a shape, how to make it have a 3D appearance, and then pimping it out a little bit with some gradients. So this is one I've done earlier, and we're just going to go into a blank document to start creating the new one. So in Illustrator, I wonder if I can collapse down some of these. Yeah, there we go. It's a little bit more screen space. In Illustrator, in our main toolbar, which might look completely different in your Illustrator, there are a few things you can do to change the setup. But something we'll look at is editing the toolbar, because there is a tool that doesn't default as appearing in the toolbar that you will need for this, but we'll touch on that in a second. Down here, so my fourth option or fifth option, I've got the rectangle tool or M. If we just click and hold on that, we can see there's a whole heap of different different shapes that we can draw, but there currently isn't a heart shape. So we're going to start with a rectangle. Instead of just drawing, I'm going to use a measurement that I know that works. So my measurements are currently in centimeters. You can set this up when you open your new file. You can opt to be millimeters is actually usually the standard. I just forgot to set it at that, but I know 5 centimeters and 8 centimeters would be 50 millimeters and 80 millimeters. If you're working a lot with type, you'll be working with points instead. But for the purpose of this, we'll go for 5 centimeters or 50 millimeters and 8 centimeters. So now we've got a lovely rectangle. What we're going to do is we're going to use our direct select tool, so our white arrow key. You can see when you hover over the tools, you get this little bracketed number for a lot of them, or a bracketed letter, and that's your quick key. So if I want the direct select tool, I can just hit A on my keyboard and it turns my cursor to the white arrow. And I'm just going to click and drag over the 2 top points, and you can see when I use the selection tool and I click on a rectangle, it currently has these little circles in all 4 of the corners, but we just want to activate 2. And actually, to make it easier to see, I'm just going to give this a black outline. And I'm going to draw a marquee across, so I'm just selecting these 2 top circles as being active. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on one of the circles at the side and drag in. And I'm going to drag until it becomes red, and that means it's become fully rounded to the point it can't be, it's going to start overlapping if we pull any more, which it won't actually let us do. So I'm going to release that, and now we have this arch shape. Arch shapes are pretty trendy at the moment, actually, so if you've been wondering how to create an arch shape, that's a really simple way of creating an arch shape. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my shift to keep it uniform, and with our select tool, which is V for the quick shortcut, so we're not direct selecting, we're just selecting the whole object this time. I'm holding down shift, and that keeps the degrees by which it rotates uniform, so I'm rotating it 45 degrees, and that's great. And then I'm on a Mac, so I'm hitting Command C. I think it's maybe Alt C on a PC. Otherwise, you can go up to Edit, Copy. And then instead of doing a straightforward paste, I'm hitting Command F, and what that's going to do is copy it directly on top of that shape. And then I'm going to hold down, with it selected, I'm going to just hold down my Control key and right click, and I'm going to transform that. So I'm going to reflect, and I'm reflecting vertical 90 degrees. And now you can see we've got a heart shape forming. So I'm just going to put this in place. And now we've got a heart shape, but it's in two parts, which we don't want. So Illustrator has this really nifty tool here, which is Shift plus M on your keyboard for the quick key, called Shape Builder. Shape Builder is fantastic, really useful tool, but I'm actually going to go back to an older tool. Shape Builder quite often leaves a lot of like loose end or loose elements, whereas this tool, which is more of a legacy tool, does a really neat job of combining everything, and that's called the Pathfinder tool. So I'm just going to make sure it's open. So under Window, I just closed it actually, but under Window we can go to Pathfinder. And here it is. And that very first option, which is Unite, if I click on that, now that is united as one shape. So the next thing we're going to do, now we've united this as a heart shape, is we're going to tear it apart again. And for this, we're going to use the knife tool. So I've already got mine up in my toolbar. If yours isn't in your toolbar, what you can do is you can go to this Edit Toolbar option, the three dots at the bottom, and you can see there are options to add in different tools. So if it isn't naturally in your toolbar, that's where you'll find it. And I'm going to grab on it, and with the heart selected, you can just draw across. So I don't want a straight line, but I don't want to go insane. I'm just going to do a slight curve. And what that's done now is that's now split this. In fact, I'm just going to undo that and do it again a little bit higher up. And that's split our heart into two sections. And I'm just going to split them apart a tiny bit, not too much. And these are the sections where we're going to add the words love and hate. Again, doesn't have to be love and hate. I just felt because of the complexity of the shape, short words would work well. So I'm going to go to the type tool, which is quick key T on the keyboard, and I'm going to write the words separately. I've already selected this type, which is called Shrikahan, I think, Shrikan, which is, I believe, I looked it up earlier, the name of a curry. It's this kind of very bold display script font. It's very readily available, so I think this is on common freeware sites for typefaces like Defont. And it's spelled Shrikand if you're looking to use this one. It's got that kind of very loose retro vibe that seems to be becoming quite popular at the moment. And obviously it being a freeware font, it's nice and accessible for everyone. So now I've got that. I'm not going to worry about the size of it or the color or anything at this stage. But I am going to put my caps lock on, and I'm going to write it all in caps just because we're looking to fill the shape. So having the letters all at the same X height, so the same height, is going to be very beneficial for actually filling a more rounded shape. With lowercase letters, we might end up with gaps. So I've written love, and I'm just going to copy and paste that, and then I'm going to write hate. So we need them to be separate text boxes or text lines. And then what we're going to do is next we're going to send these to the back. So object, arrange, send to back. So there are quick keys for these, but I've not found that they've actually worked. For me, you might find they work for you. So the quick key for this, I believe, is Control Command C on the keyboard if you're a Mac user, but we'll just look at where you can go and grab it from the actual menu. So I'm selecting the top half of the heart and the word love. And under Object, we are going to go down to this option, which is Envelope Dissolve. and make with top object. And now that's dropped the word love into the heart and sort of morphed it into the shape. And we're going to select the bottom and the word hate and do exactly the same thing. So object, envelope dissolve, make with top object. And now it's gone in. So you can see it's distorted that E a lot. If I was really playing with this, I might go and look at the shape. Like if I was doing this as a graphic element for someone, I'd probably go and play around a little bit with getting the word hate not to be so dramatic, because I'm losing the E shape. I think in my example, I've managed to kind of line it up, and that's just to do with the way I've placed the split. I think I've placed it a little bit lower down, and I've not made it such a dramatic curve, and that's made the E a little bit more legible or easy to read. However, I'm fine with that for this instance. So once that's done, I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to go to Object, and we are going to expand it. So Object, Expand. And what that does is it takes it from being type that we can edit into outline shapes, and that's going to allow us to do a little bit more with the letters. So I've already, I like to keep a clean color palette. So I've already got my colors set up and ready to use. I won't show you how to do that right now, but it's good practice to do that, just so you know exactly what you're using. Particularly, we're going to be working with gradients soon, so just knowing what colors you want to work with in advance really helps when you're working with the gradient tool. So we're going to group these together, which is Command G or Object Group. And we're going to make a copy. So I'm just going to do quick keys for this, Command C, and then I'm going to Command F, which drops it on top, but it actually doesn't matter. We're going to place it off center anyway. But I'm just going to decrease the size of this one. So you can kind of go as small as you want, really. It's going to just make it more dramatic. It's going to make it look like it's popping out from a smaller perspective point further off in the distance. I'm going to do it a little bit closer. And then I'm just going to off-center it a little bit. So wherever you put it is going to be where your kind of perspective point is. So you could have it going right or left, or pretty central or lower. Actually, for this one, let's do it coming from lower down and slightly off-center. And then I'm going to make sure I'm sending this one to the back. So Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And I'm just going to go into my color palette here, and I'm going to put this as a really dark purple, and then I'm going to put this one as like a kind of mid-tone purple. Do I want to go? So I might just add a new swatch in that's a tad lighter than that, but not too light. There we go. And I'm going to select both of these. And what we're going to do now is look at blending them together, which is going to give us, in fact, before I do that, there's one little step that really helps make sure it pops as a final result. I'm going to just copy this top layer. So I'm just going to hit Command C or Edit Copy if you're doing it the long way around. And I'm just going to leave that there. So I know I've copied that, but I'm not going to worry about pasting it just yet. So I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to go into Object, and we're going to go to this Blend mode option. So Object, Blend. And the first thing we need to do is go to Blend Options. There is a two-step process to this. There's a drop-down menu. There's Smooth Color, so that kind of comes up with a middle point in color between the two objects. Specific Steps and Specific Distance. So we're after the Specific Steps option. And I won't play around with it at this point because it would make the demo take too long, but you could do like 4 steps and you'll just have 4 elements in between. But if you want it to look really seamless, you need to do a lot of steps. I had play around and 80 seemed to work really well. So I've got a lot of steps here. I've got 80 steps. And then we OK that and it does nothing. So the next step actually is what's going to make it work, and that is in Object, Blend again, and then this time we're going to choose Make. And now we've got this like fabulous like gradient popping forward from a a perspective point coming towards us, but it's not very legible. So remember we did that copy. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to paste in place. So Command F to drop it exactly on the right spot. And I'm going to go into my swatch palette and I'm going to put a much brighter color as the top. And now it's become much more legible. The final thing I'm going to just show is how to add some gradient to the letters. When I was doing this one, I really went round and did it a letter at a time. So we're going to use that handy direct select tool, the white arrow tool again, and we're just going to select on each letter. And I'm going to open up my gradient menu. If you can't see it, if you go to Windows menu, you can find your gradient there. And Illustrator only recently, I think in the last couple of years, added this great option which is called freeform gradient. So we are going to use that, and you can see it gives you these little dots that you can move around. I'm imagining the light source is coming from over here. Often light comes from above, if you think where the sun is in the sky. So the top of objects will often be more brightly lit than the bottom. So I'm just going to make sure that my brightest point is up the top here. And then the darker points are down the bottom. And you can actually increase, you can grab that outer ring and increase the size as well of what's going on with the gradient. So now we're starting to kind of make the letters shiny, and I'll go through and custom. You can actually grab the eyedropper tool just to give you a starting point, but then what you can do is go into the freeform gradient again in your gradient menu. You have to select edit gradient, but then you can start pulling these around to get them to sit where you want them to. So the very last thing I did with this one was to add some of these quite kitschy little, I actually added a little outline on it just to make it pop again. And I added these kitschy little star shapes just to give it a kind of pop. And I added a background and a drop shadow. I'll just quickly show the star shape and I'll let you work out and play around with the rest. But if you go under the marquee tool, so we've got the rectangle tool here. We want to go down to the star tool. And if I just click once, I never quite know what to do with these. I think the radial 2 is the outer and radial 1 is the inner. So if you don't want it to be like a classic, quite fat star, if you want it to have a narrow center, you want this measurement in the center to be quite small and the measurement on the outside to be larger. Yeah, and that's given me. So if I did that again, but I made this measurement 1.2, we've got much more of, this is almost like a bargain sticker star. So we want that first radiant option to be much smaller than the second one. And then that final option is the number of points. So I want it to have quite a few points. So I've got this, and I'm going to just fill this. For the purpose of you being able to see it, I'm going to do it a light purple, but actually, let's just shove a background on so we can see it in place. So I'm just going to grab the rectangle. I'm going to add a really dark purple. I'm going to send that to the back. And then with this star, I'm going to make it white. It's quite large at the moment. And we can actually add an effect to that. So we're going to add effects, and down at the bottom here, blur, glacier blur. And you actually, if you've got preview turned on, you can see how much blur you're adding. So I want us to kind of see the star shape. There we go. So that's giving it a little bit of ting. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully nice and easy to follow. And oh gosh, I've done double the time I said I was going to. But yeah, have fun playing with the gradients and everything. I think that's really what makes it special and a little bit more polished, but quite a fun, playful type treatment to try. Thanks very much.